Hey, what's up, everybody? I want to welcome you to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Daily Recap, where we give you a recap of all of the hot topics that we covered that day. You can catch them in their long format and also catch it fully streaming for free on Apple Podcasts. Let's get into the content here. Let's get into this here. So, I was minding my business, enjoying myself, online, responding to Lebron fans. I'm fighting them on Instagram. By the way, if you're not following us on our IG handle is Dreamers Pro, same name as the channel. I'm fighting them over there. I'm fighting them in the comment section. I'm fighting them everywhere, right? I'm fighting these LeBron fans anywhere. And I said to myself, I said, you know what? Let me just go ahead and just deal with these guys one more time because they just deserve it, right? You can never ever feel bad for a LeBron fan. I'm always arguing with them, always arguing with them. So what happened? One of the things that LeBron fans have always cried about is that, oh, LeBron doesn't have enough help, man. He doesn't have enough help. He doesn't have enough help. Even staunch supporters of LeBron like Chris Broussard has come out and said, he's tired of hearing this excuse. And if you have a Chris Broussard, who's even represented by Clutch Sports, saying that he's tired of hearing this excuse, that should tell you how long it's been going on. But for the longest time, I've been hearing LeBron doesn't have enough help. LeBron doesn't have enough help. So as I'm sitting there, I'm saying to myself, I wonder how many teammates did Kobe and Jordan and LeBron play with while they were on their roster that averaged at least 20 points per game. At least 20 points per game. And then I sat back and started doing some research. And when I found out that the information that I was looking for, and I posted it on our community section of our channel, all hell broke loose. So let me get into this post here. I wrote on the channel, this was 22 hours ago. I said, number of teammates, and I want to show it to you, number of teammates Kobe played with that averaged at least 20 points per game. One player, Shaq. Number of teammates Jordan played with that averaged at least 20 points per game. Scottie Pippen. Number of teammates LeBron played with that averaged at least 20 points per game. Three players. Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, Dwayne Wade. And then I wrote, but LeBron had no help. Make it make sense. This post generated about 815 likes and about 580 comments. If you didn't say your piece, please make sure you go on there and do that. I didn't even get into the cumulative amount of all-star. That one is just embarrassing. That one is just egregious. So some of y'all are like, but no, Kobe played with this guy that averaged that much and this guy. No. You see, we're talking about help. All right. So when I talk about help, I'm talking about guys that average 20 a game while on the same roster with LeBron James throughout his career. Let's look at Kobe. Kobe only played with one guy, and that guy was Pau Gasol. When Pau was playing, excuse me, not Pau Gasol, Shaq was the guy when he was playing with Kobe. Let's look at his Laker years, okay? Let's start from the, Shaq averaged many seasons averaging 25, 28, 29, 28, 27, multiple seasons. So that's the guy Kobe played with. Some of y'all, but what about Pau Gasol? There was no season in which Pau Gasol played with Kobe Bryant where he averaged 20 points. The highest Pau ever averaged while playing with Kobe Bryant was 18.9 points per game. That is it. Not even 19. 18.9. That was it. So when Kobe was going on that 3 runs to the championship, going back to back, he never played with a guy that scored 20 points. Matter of fact, Kobe didn't even play with an all-star player that made the player that made the all-star team throughout that period. If I'm not mistaken, no, Pau may have made the team. Pau may have made the team, but I think he played with just one all-star, if I'm not mistaken. Matter of fact, let me see. What years did Pau Gasol make the all-star team? Let me see. Did Kobe play with him? Because the other guy that he played with was Lamar Odom, and Lamar Odom didn't make any all-star team. Let me see. Look at that. Let me see. No. All-star. When did Pau go to the Lakers? Pau went to the Lakers, and I forgot the year. 2009 to 2000 and right. So when did Pau make the all-star team? Pau made the all-star team 2 times. So he played with one all-star. Okay. So that's what Kobe played with. Only one guy that averaged 20, which is Shaq. Let's get to Jordan. Jordan played with Scottie Pippen. And during his Bulls run, Scottie Pippen had multiple seasons where he averaged at least 20 points. He averaged 21, 22, 20. Those are the numbers that I'm seeing here. Okay, so you have Scottie. Now, let's look at LeBron. Let's look at LeBron in Cleveland when he played with Kyrie Irving. All right, Kyrie Irving, when he was with the Cavs. All right, he averaged, LeBron went to 2012. So 20, yeah, exactly. 21, 19.6, 25. Yeah, so there were multiple seasons when he averaged 21 and 25. That's Kyrie Irving, if I got those numbers correct. I don't remember the years. Yes, yeah, exactly. So multiple seasons there. Let's look at Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade, when he was playing with LeBron, let's see, he played with him in 2010 or whatever it is, 11. Dwayne was averaging 25, 22, 21. Dwayne Wade was another guy. And then, of course, you have Anthony Davis, who's averaged 20 for every single year he's been with the Lakers. Okay? So the thing is, if LeBron has never had help throughout the course of his career, he's played with multiple guys that were averaging at least 20 points per game in their regular seasons. Meanwhile, Kobe played with one guy that did it. And it's not like as if Kobe played with Shaq for 100,000 years. Kobe played with Shaq for what? Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 years. It wasn't like as if he played him for 20 years. So he had a a player of Shaq's caliber for 7 years. And then he had some years when he didn't even have an all-star teammate. And then he played with Pau Gasol. But LeBron has been playing with like top of the shelf talent, and still find a way to lose more or not win as much as both of those guys. Still found a way. I just thought that it was important that we bring this point up because it gets quite nauseating listening to LeBron fans say LeBron doesn't have any help. As you guys know, the NBA is announcing a new format for this All-Star weekend, especially for the All-Star game, which sounds just absolutely horrendous to even, it sounds horrendous to even explain, so I'm not going to explain it. But basically what it is they're breaking the teams, the 24 players, something like that, into 3 teams. And they're going to be of 8 players, and there's going to be a 4th team made of the rising stars, and they're going to play like 5-minute quarter. Nobody knows, right? They brought this up on ESPN First Take. Stephen A. Smith, who has a very powerful voice in the sports world on a very big platform, basically called it a bunch of nonsense. Right. And if Stephen A. Smith is saying it and willing to go out there on a limb like that, given his platform and given the association that ESPN has with the NBA in terms of their rights to the games and all of that, that should tell you a lot. That him being aware of all of that and still going out there and saying that should say a lot. A lot of people think this thing is an absolute joke. A total joke. Let's look over the box score last year of last year's game, which was just a total disaster from beginning to start. That game featured a score of 211 to 186. These teams almost scored 400 points combined. They played absolutely no defense. Let me just look at how many threes they attempted. The West team attempted 71 threes. The East team attempted 97 threes. In that game, they almost attempted 170 threes. I want you guys to think about that. 170 threes were attempted in a basketball game. That is an average of 42 threes a quarter. 42 threes a quarter. A quarter. I was just listening to Gilbert Arenas and Gil's Arena and these guys, or Kenny Martin and these guys. These guys are some of the biggest advocates of this era. They were essentially saying that this era of players are stupid. Do you know why they were saying that they were stupid? They were going over the math and they're like, but these got to be the stupidest guys we've ever seen. Teams are attempting a record high in threes and scoring is only up by an average of 2 points per game. He said it's actually stupid, the volume of threes that they're taking. Because they're forgetting that basketball is a game you think. You don't play it in a robotic, dogmatic way. You have to process issues in front of you. But this stupidity that they're playing with was like, oh, well, the math says take the three. The math doesn't take the matchup and the possession into context. It doesn't do that. It doesn't do that. That's why you have to judge the game on a possession to possession basis. They're attempting way more threes and the scoring is barely moved. Barely moved. So what happened? This morning, came across a soundbite from actually one of our affiliates, believe it or not, at CLNS Media, from the channel NBA History and Storytellers, and it featured Bob Ryan, right? And Bob Ryan was essentially talking about a conversation that he had with Larry Bird. Now, to give you guys some quick context, Larry Bird was at the last All-Star game, I believe, and he was essentially there to try to coax these guys up to play hard. And that clearly didn't work. So he was asking Larry what he thought about the All-Star game and the NBA in general. And to basically distill it into one word, he was disgusted. So what we want to do is want to play exactly what Bob Ryan had to say about his conversation with Larry Bird about the current state of affairs in the NBA today. And I'm going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to what he had to say here.
And the first one was in the with this new All-Star game format, this nonsense, they won't play they refuse to play a real basketball game. And so they've got to find some other way of doing this. And they don't care about the All-Star game. It's all about the dunk contest and the 3-point. And the game is, play a game, I mean, and they made a mockery of it. And I say I blame these players. If they wanted to play basketball, we'd have a game.
Sure.
They don't have any sense of personal pride. I don't understand it. So they give us 211 to 186 last year. And, it's disgraceful. It's embarrassment to me. I mean, they should be embarrassed. Well, they're not going to do that anymore, and they're going to do some nonsense. Okay. So I went to Larry, and I said, Larry, what was your attitude toward All-Star games? I wanted to win, period. Quote, unquote, I wanted to win.
Right.
I said, we played competitive games. No, you don't want anybody to get hurt. You didn't go nuts. You didn't go crazy. You didn't do stupid things, but you played basketball and you wanted to win. Gee, how elementary is that? Well, we've gotten away from that. So I want to hear it from the horse's mouth, if you will, and a guy who, and that leads me to part B. In his first All-Star game in 1980 in Washington, Larry Bird made history. What was that, Bob? He made a 3-pointer. I said one singular, a 3-pointer that basically put the game away. Okay? And it was newsworthy. He hit a 3. Wow. Well, then we got into a discussion about the 3. Now, here's the revelation that I love. Larry Bird said, well, hell, we never practiced threes. He said, the first time I practiced threes was prior to the first 3-point contest in 1986. I never practiced threes. I just took them when they were there. And yeah, he said, today, high school kids, it's the game. Everybody takes threes because that's the game. But in his day, it was a bad shot. A bad shot. He said in KC one time, it was funny, he said, made him laugh. He was in New York. And KC told them, don't take so many stupid threes in so many words. Maybe he didn't use stupid, that's mine. But he basically said, you guys you're taking too many threes. First possession, Danny cranks a 3. And Larry laughed like hell. He said, I couldn't believe it. It was great. So anyway, but now the game, and I said, Larry, would you want to take 10 or 11? Not really, but, he'd adapt. And of course, but that's just, so that's the difference in the game. Just think about that. He never practiced a 3 until he just had that. He happened to have that range.
Bob, when you mentioned, are you good with Bird before we move on? Because I have a great, what else?
That's the big thing was that the All-Star game and the fact that they played it. He's disgusted. He was invited last year. He
wouldn't go.
He thought it was a joke, and it is a joke, and it's awful. And
so you heard what he had to say. What are my thoughts about this? I think, what's amazing? As I was listening to that soundbite, I was saying to myself, I was thinking about companies that at one point were reigning at the top. And it's like they refuse to pay attention to the signs. And then we're watching like a business like one of these documentaries of a company, like what happened to that company, like Blockbuster or something like that. And you're sitting there listening to the CEO. He's like, well, we had the signs, but we're being arrogant. We didn't pay attention to the trends and all of that. That's the kind of sense I'm getting. Do you know there was some data that came out the other day that a college basketball game actually had higher ratings than an NBA game, I think, between the Lakers and Warriors or something like that? Are you aware of this? A college basketball game drew more interest than an NBA game featuring the biggest franchise in the sport in Los Angeles Lakers and I think the Warriors. Are you aware of this? That signifies growth to you? And then you have all of these voices, athletes, former athletes, content creators, journalists, all of them saying they don't like the product. All of them. But the NBA is holding on tight to, it's great. It's great. What did Adam Silver say? He said the reason that the NBA isn't doing so well is because they went against the World Series. Doesn't the World Series happen every year? Doesn't the World Series happen every year? So how can that be an excuse? So it was an election cycle. Okay, but the year before that, last year, the numbers were down too. Oh, well, it's like we're just going to keep kicking the can down the road and continue in denial. And I actually saw a video the other day because I've been trying to understand if the ratings are going down, why do these companies keep paying billions of dollars for the NBA rights? And someone just revealed the information on this on House of Straws. And essentially what this gentleman said was that the reason the NBA is able to get these multi-billion dollar contracts, even though the ratings are going down, is because of these networks. They need something to put on TV, right? They need something to put on TV. And the NBA is going to these networks and has found a way to create a bidding war, right? A bidding war between these companies over their product, because in a lot of cases, they may have declining viewership numbers and they're like, okay, we can offer you this. And then the NBA may go to Warner or whatever TV company or whatever and say, look, this guy's willing to pay me $1 billion. And then the other guy will be like, well, I can pay you $1.2 billion and I can pay you and then that's how they did it. So even though there's a decline in viewership, they were still able to create a bidding war from these television companies, networks or whatever, that are seeing decline in ratings and they need something to sell advertising against. That's how he basically explained it. And I'm just paraphrasing it and oversimplifying it, right? Just go to House of Straws. You can find the gentleman there talking about this. But it's a damn shame that Larry Bird himself is saying this thing is a total joke. And it is a total joke. It is a total joke. But you know what? Let's continue kicking the can down the road and act like as if nothing is happening. Let's stick our heads in the sands and just sing Kumbaya. Nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. And I have no intention to watch. I mean, watch this weekend just to see the spectacle of it, but not out of excitement. Just to see what new nonsense did they come up with this year. So, over the last week or so, we've been on a full-blown Lakers LeBron roast, and I've enjoyed every step of it. I've enjoyed every single step of it because you must roast these LeBron fans. You have to. We must. We must, because they're always, it's like we're at war with these people, man. Whenever LeBron does something, they all up in the comment section, twerking it up, hollering, screaming, oh, LeBron did this, LeBron did that. Now they coming for us on Instagram. If you're not following us on IG, make sure you follow us on IG. Our handle is Dreamers Pro, same as the channel. We definitely going after them over there too, and they over there heavy, right? There's one dude that comments on every single video I post. He be dropping like 5 to 10 comments per reel that we drop. So we over there heavy over there on IG. So what happened? Going into last night's game, the Lakers had lost 3 games in a row, right? Because they finally had an opportunity to play some real NBA competition. But going into yesterday's game, I said that it was going to be a foregone conclusion that the Lakers were going to beat the Utah Jazz. Now, why did I say that? Well, going into that game, the Jazz had lost 3 games in a row. They had a record of 4-15, and they were almost the worst team, okay, in the Western Conference, and one of the bottom 3 teams in the entire NBA. So I said going into that game, it's going to be a no-brainer that LeBron and these guys are going to beat the living hell out of them. And boy, oh boy, was I wrong. I actually started watching the game. And as I was watching that game, you could clearly see in the first quarter that the Jazz were not a very good basketball team. They were making executional mistakes. They were sloppy. A lot of times it's like they didn't know what sets they wanted to get into. They just looked confused. But for whatever reason, the Lakers themselves couldn't even take advantage of it. As I'm watching this game, I'm saying to myself, if the Lakers can't put this team away quickly, if they can't beat this confused team quickly, how are they going to be able to fare against real NBA competition? So as the Lakers are playing them, at a certain point, they will take a lead, then they'll go back, they'll take a lead, and then the game comes all the way down to the waning moments, and the Lakers totally avoid, or nearly avoid, a total collapse had it not been for a blunder by the Jazz head coach and just basically squeaked by with a 1-point victory. And then, of course, you had those LeBron fans twerking it up all over the internet. So let's get into the box score of this game. As I said, the Lakers ended up winning that game 105-104. But there was a shot that Colin Sexton made at the end of the game that ended up not counting, which would have been a game winner, but his coach ended up calling a timeout. Now, I just want to go over some of the stats from the first half, because in the first half, the Lakers actually had 58 points to 56 points. Again, this is against one of the 3 worst teams in the entire NBA. In the third quarter, of that game, the Lakers scored 28-25. You're like, okay, they had a 2-point lead. Now they made it a 5-point lead at the end of the third. So one would think, oh, okay, they're going to go out and just beat them and then just get away with it in the sunset. But what happens? The Lakers get outscored by 4 points in that game in the fourth quarter. Okay, LeBron does score 10 points in the fourth quarter, but he took 14 shots in the fourth quarter and shot 35%. Okay, 35% and attempted 6 threes. He missed all of his 3-point shots. AD attempted 2 shots, while LeBron attempted 14 shots. LeBron by himself attempted more shots individually than his entire team in the fourth quarter. And I'm going to tell you exactly why LeBron was attempting all those shots. I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because going into the fourth quarter, in the first half, LeBron had 13 points. In the third quarter, he had 4 points, which means that what? LeBron had 17 points. Now, what some of you may not be aware of, if LeBron didn't score, or coming into that game, LeBron had gone like, I think, 6 games where he scored less than 20 points in a game. So LeBron was keenly aware of his numbers. And I don't think LeBron was ready to go 7 games in a row where he didn't score at least 20 points. So he ended up finishing the game with 27 points. He took 28 shots to get 27 points. He took 9 3-point shots and missed all of them. In the fourth, he missed 6. So these guys were actually going through a total collapse in the game. And they were barely able to squeak out of there with the win. And do you know why? The free throw advantage. The Lakers finished that game +9 in terms of free throw attempts to the Jazz, who got 16 to the Lakers 25. So the Lakers had the free throw advantage, and they only won against the 3rd worst team in the Western Conference in the NBA by 1 point. And they would have lost that game had it not been a late game blunder by the Jazz head coach. Had it not been that blunder, the Lakers would have lost the game. So if I'm a Lakers fan, or I'm a LeBron fan, I'm not celebrating nothing. I'm not going live. I'm not doing none of that. Because if you're struggling to beat this team, who's one of the worst teams in the NBA, what's going to happen when you start playing real teams? They got the Minnesota Timberwolves coming up next. They play good basketball, kind of. You have the Miami Heat. They're going to compete. They're going to play hard. They just beat Dallas in Dallas the other day. You have the Atlanta Hawks, which seem to be one of the weirdest teams in the NBA. They can beat teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers and then just lose to teams that they're supposed to beat. And then they have the Portland Trail Blazers, and then they have the Kings coming up 2 times, and then they have the Pistons. So the Lakers are getting ready to go on another soft schedule. And they may pick up some wins. But what I want to say is, whatever wins they do pick up, don't be fooled by it. Because they're not playing real teams. Whatever their record reflects now doesn't really show. because they're playing nobodies, and in some cases they're barely beating nobodies.